go.
So good. Well, so we are live with Real Fridays. So I'm super happy. My name's Dr. Rick Rock. I started Real Fridays about 3 years ago, along with Jeremy Potter and Brock Cassidy. And the focus of the show, just for Andy, just for you and Anand's purposes, was really, industry experts talking about sort of insider-like information around how the industry is trending, what the competitive trends are, market trends, innovations that are having an impact, new technologies that are coming to the scene and having an impact in mortgage lending. We often will talk about headlines and what's happening in the business. And it really caught on because we know a lot more about the industry than the three of us even really understand, right? We take so much for granted because of the tenure we've been in this industry. And you get people even in the industry that's been here a long time who don't really, they're so caught in their vertical, they don't really go outside of their bounds. So they learn a lot from a show like this. Investors, Wall Street investors, private equity, is a big audience member of this show, as well as real estate agents and builders and that sort of thing. So I'm super happy about having Andy, you being here from Novus Home Loans. Is it Novus Home Loans or Novus Lending? What's the league? I always call it just Novus, but it's
Novus works, but Novus Home Mortgage.
Yeah, Novus Home Mortgage. That's right.
Yep.
And then of course Anand from Seattle, Washington. You're still in Seattle, right, Anand?
We are. Been here a long time, right?
Yeah, and so so Anand, you and I got in contact. Who introduced us together? Was it?
I think it was Alex and me, and we're starting to talk to lenders across the industry. And Sky, Alex knew him before.
Yeah, from Crib Equity. Yeah,
right. And so Sky had introduced Alex and me with you, and so we started talking. Gosh, that was like almost 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, look, in the age of AI, you were sort of ahead of the pack. If this were a cross country race, you would have been going into the woods. You'd be sort of at the head of the pack because every conference I attend now, there's some Google engineer or there's some Chinese PhD that's come in wanting to have an impact on mortgage and AI. But you were one of the first new faces that taking your leadership from Microsoft and pouring it into AI and in sort of optimizing our workflow on a lot of different fronts. What I love about you is you don't color in between the lines. People like Andy and I have been in business a long time. We're so beaten down and having to follow these like POS, LOS, CRM. We've always had to color in between the lines. And you coming in from outside being like, why is this line even here?
Right.
Why, this doesn't make any sense. We should be able to, authenticate, income assets in employment verification kind of while you're doing the application. So why is this phony line between POS authentications and the LOS? So I've loved our communication in the last couple of years. I wouldn't mind starting with you, Andy, because you and I speak sort of the same language. So you're a producing, non-producing branch manager, producing. What's your role?
Producing, yeah, and the branch manager honestly is just more of a title, right? It's basically a production team that that we run here, and I'm located in Virginia, but obviously with Novus as a division of a bank, right? We lend in 50 states and in the Virgin Islands, which is where I just got this gorgeous tan, just came back from, right? So it was a lot of fun.
I was wondering about that, Andy. Like, how long were you there?
Like, what happened to Tomato Man over here, right? Like, I come back and it's my skin loves the sun. What can I say? We run a production team here, and it was good. It's been a good run. In fact, I just got my 5-year anniversary number and award from Novus today, and it was a lot of fun to look back, and it was a good opportunity to reflect on what's happened over the last 5 years for us. But very proud of what our team's been able to do. So thank you for asking.
You're an incredible producer. Obviously, at least this snapshot connected to your NMLS. I'm sure there's other people that are on your team that work for you. Eric speaks very, very highly of you. I spoke to Eric this morning, obviously the founder of Novus, previous CEO of Waterstone Mortgage, and huge fan of his. And even though this is our first time meeting, Andrew, he just spoke really highly of you and your leadership and being able to sort of innovate through things for the organization. But yeah, no, you're out of Brookfield, man. I love Wisconsin. You must be a Packer fan. Are you a Packer fan?
We all got to have that because we're at a bank. I'm actually in Florida and Virginia is where I split my time. I spend.
Oh, that's right. You're in Virginia. That's right. That's what he said.
Yeah, Virginia has always been my home, and I run a primary office out of Virginia, but I spend a little more than half of my year down in the Florida market.
Now, are you in Virginia Beach or more in the DC metro?
No, that'd be in Central Virginia, Charlottesville, outside the Charlottesville marketplace. So right in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
No, that's fantastic.
And then obviously, as you can tell by the artwork behind me, spend a good bit of time in Orlando.
That's fantastic. No, I love it. No, and Anon, you're obviously, like you said, you're in Seattle. And so the scope of what you're aiming to do, so you're on Encompass. What's your POS? What's your current tech stack at Novus right now?
So the tech stack runs basically, we have, let's talk separate from what we'll get into, I think, as this conversation evolves, where Anon comes into play, but it's been sort of standard box style technology, right? We got Simple Nexus, we've got Encompass as our LOS, and then we run a CRM, right? Currently, we transitioned from Surefire over to Total Expert. This is all sort of inside the company. And the thing I am going to share this because the thing that I love so much about working with Eric and Novus and what I've gotten the opportunity to do here with Anand is that, Eric and Novus are Novus, Latin for a lot of people mispronounce it. They're like, oh, look, it's a novice company. No, it's Novus, Latin for new. And so the idea here is that, most of these technologies, they don't function at a very high level. They function at a mediocre level, and they're designed to appeal to CEOs and executive teams, not necessarily to loan officers, and not certainly to high producers. They're meant to basically take that minimum standard and sort of raise it up. So our tech stack looks very similar to like a lot of companies in that particular case, and that's changing. And what I love about what Eric's done and the freedom he's given me, and the reason that I work here is because my personal tech stack looks very different than what Novus's tech stack looks like. And that's because we get some freedom to tinker and to play and to try new things and to innovate and create. But as a company, that's primarily what we use. I think we're in Total Expert now. We were in Surefire. And then we've got the other two sort of standards that exist. A little bit of Mortgage Coach, and then some pre-approvals and things like that are done through a company called Lender Logics, which has been a nice partner as well.
Yeah. So what was the, prior to meeting Anon, like what was the problem you're trying to solve, or what was the efficiency you were aiming to sort of run a little faster or run sort of ahead of? Like, is there?
So I would say it wasn't necessarily a problem. It was a disconnect between the way mortgage companies run, because we've always run this way, and the way that we should. And it was, kind of goes back to me. It goes back to my days in college, where I wasn't smart enough to get into the College of Business. Actually, I was quite a good partier. And so the College of Business was like, maybe, and I went to Ohio State. That's why I asked I asked the Minnesota question earlier, right? So I went to Ohio State, and Ohio State was like, that's great. You pay your bills every single quarter. This is fantastic. But why don't you go to the College of Human Ecology instead and study this thing called consumer affairs? And so it was actually kind of fitting, because we get into the mortgage industry, and here's what I found, Rick, over the years, and Anand, the part that you're filling is, the mortgage industry does things because the mortgage industry's always done things certain ways. And every company generates business, and the company looks at it and says, well, what tech can we bring in that'll help make our process more efficient? Right? Let's be honest. Like, that's a question that we're all asking. Like, what can we do to make our loan process more efficient? But you know what nobody really asks? What could I do to make this feel more efficient for the client? Right? What could we do to make this feel like they're creating their own pathways and experience? So an example that I brought up to Anand the other day as we were talking is, again, I went to Ohio State. In fact, Disney did this as well. But there are places at Ohio State and places within Disney where they paved the paths relative to the way that the guests or the students walked. They're like, hey, let's make it a big grass field. Let's figure out where these people walk, and then let's pave those paths, because that's the path that the users want to take. Well, the mortgage industry doesn't do that. And Rick, this is the problem with those big box technologies is they're like, I'm going to sell this as a holistic solution to a company because there's an executive that hasn't done a mortgage in 452 years. And they're going to think this is going to help. And the reality is it does. It probably helps their very, very, very bottom end producers do maybe one more loan a year. Okay. But I'm not interested in that. One loan a year doesn't move a needle for me, right? I want to know, how do I go do 150, 250, 1,000 more loans a year? And I can only do that if I get the consumer, the client, to feel like they're creating their own process relative to how they want to do it. So that's really, at the end of the day, what the problem is that we're trying to solve is, how do we make mortgages efficient internally, but yet manufacture them in such a way that the client feels that ease because it's what they want anyway.
Yeah. So what was it about Anand when you first met him? Because I'll turn it over to you, Anand, in a second. But Andy, like, when you first met Anand, what was it about his pitch and his conversation with you that stood out in a way where it could accomplish like that efficiency that you're aiming to achieve?
So it wasn't really a pitch or an anything. It was, he asked a lot of really great questions about how we work and where our process gets stuck and why does it get stuck. And he recognized, I could tell immediately that he recognized that his area of expertise was not our area of expertise, in that his area of expertise was to figure out how to solve the problems that existed on the front lines for us relative to the consumer actually using our technology and our products. And so we asked a lot of questions, and he listened, and he takes great notes. And then at the end of the day, I think that the part that really was the gel was, we're, as salespeople, right, in the mortgage industry, if we're really good at what we do, we're really great at understanding the human psychology, right? Like why people do things, or, sort of what they lean into. And once we understand that, if we can articulate it in a way that somebody like, and specifically in this case, Anand, understands, and he does, then he can speak both languages and he can go create the technological solution for the human problem that we actually experience. And I think that's what's missing in most cases, and why most products fail is, you could have the best overall technology, you could have the best overall AI, the best usability, but nobody pays attention to how the end user is really going to function in this environment. And is it solving an actual problem, or are we just pretending we think we know what the problem is? And in Anand's case, he asked the right questions to get us to the point that he understood the real problem wasn't how mortgage people use the technology. The real problem is how we interpret the technology once the consumer has actually used it. And so what he's fixing is the consumer interface, which is the real problem within the industry.
Anand, what is the problem? What's the problem in the industry? How would you articulate that? Because I agree with what Andy. Yeah, I agree with how Andy positioned that. But as a technologist, as a Microsoft, leader, and somebody who's trying to make impact on mortgage, like, how would you? You've poked around in the industry for a couple of years. You've met a lot of really powerful people in the business. What's our problem?
It's Rick. What Andy said, I think it summarizes quite a bit of it. For us, it's just, my name's coming up quite a bit, but we got a team. We started together with one of my longtime friends a couple of years ago. It's been just an incredible journey to learn how the industry works. As Andy said, like, obviously we're not from mortgage. I had no idea about how mortgage worked. We had a very different product, if you remember. We're building verifications and how we can use AI to automate a lot of the verification processes, save time, save cost. And as we learned what was coming up in my discussions with execs at different lenders of different sizes, I think we were at MBA together a year and a half ago.
Yep.
There were these patterns evolving where many times when it comes to verification specifically, you'll see some existing products, and there is always this tension. Execs and the corporate would say, oh, use all of these automated tools, but the loan officers, top producing loan officers, their teams, they always had that resistance. Oh, these things lead me to lose a client because these things aren't optimized for what the client needs to do. Talking about paving the way or pathways for what borrowers actually need. This really, all the teams, all they're doing, going from one system to another, it was baffling for me when I talked to execs saying, oh, there are files we have, which we have like production for mortgages. We have had 50 different vendors touch that file before starting from the lead all the way to funding. And I'm like, how do you all work with 50 different tools? There are these small tools for everything, one for income calculation, one for fraud detection, one for doc processing, one for lead gen, one for full application. And that's just the ones which we're getting insight into. And as Andy said, there are many other tools used. So much fragmentation. And most of all, I think if you look at just the interface, the front end for how borrowers start their home ownership journey, in the 90s, some innovation, which we call the internet, people took that paper 1003, put that on in a web form on internet, and that happened in the 90s. And if you see today, really, we've just made maybe a different UI for it, but it's still the same 30 screens of data entry people are doing.
Oh, yeah.
And once they complete those, then they're like, okay, now go through finding all your docs from all the different places. Half the time, maybe more than half, the documents they provide and the details they entered in those 30 screens over 2 hours, they don't match. So it's more work for Andy and team to then manually clean that up. And then it goes into Encompass, and now you're in this loop of, oh, you missed that page, or you missed that document. You're going back and forth. And that was baffling to us as well, because in engineering, for software engineering, we talk about this thing called dev loop. For engineers to be really, really efficient, execs and leaders, their focus is the relentless focus on how do we cut the time from people knowing what to build, writing the code, testing it, deploying it, finding issues, coming back to then fix it again, deploy it, test it, finding bugs. And so we call this dev loop. And I think of it in mortgage as your production loop. How are you going to get this borrower from lead to pre-approval, clear to close, funding? And that loop just goes days and weeks many times because there is no efficiency in that process. So borrower experience is how people are completing their applications, how then operations teams are processing and using that data to complete the application. These are some of the key inefficiency issues. And obviously, every time you introduce a new vendor, every time you introduce a new tool, new step, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So cost keeps going up, efficiency keeps going down, which is kind of opposite to what everyone is trying to do.
So where does the rubber hit the road with your relationship with Novus? Like what are the use cases? So I think you've summarized the technical breakdown and all these disparate systems, all these disparate vendors, disparate processes that are not interconnected. That's the world Andy and I live in and have lived in for 20 plus years. The question is like, so where are you, where's your point of entry and how are you helping make Andy's life easier and better and more efficient?
Oh, I would love to answer that. Andy, do you want to chime in about what you're seeing today? Because Andy would have a better answer on how it's making his and his team's life easier. And I'll probably like touch on how technology is making that happen.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with it. So, first, let me acknowledge that obviously change is without question hard, right? It's hard to change ideas and processes, and it's also hard to do it when it's not perfect. So we got the privilege to be on the beta group for basically this partnership between our companies in creating a new we'll call it frontline POS essentially. And it started with what data were we collecting and how are we collecting it and how are we making it easier for the client in order to just lean in and give us information. And Rick, it starts with one simple question, which is this: does the client want to complete ever an application? And the answer is no. They don't want to create, they don't want to complete an application. They know they have to at some point in time, but we in our industry begin with a barrier to entry, which is great. If you want the information that I have, I just need to get your application. And they're like, well, I don't really know you well enough, Rick. I'm not well enough to go down that road with you yet. Like, we just met. How about we just get to know each other first? But they want accurate information. And so it starts with, the mortgage industry defined this differently a couple of years ago, or we started using it, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was like, well, great, we'll complete my questionnaire instead. And they like get to their questionnaire and they're like, wow, that looks a lot like an application. Like, yeah, but it's not, because you haven't found a property yet. And it's like this. So what Anand created was a legitimate questionnaire, and the questionnaire gives us enough data that he can then create the technology to lean into now an integration between the client's vast amount of employment resources. So employer themselves, employment portal, similar to like you go do an account check or whatever, and you have like a bunch of employers that are listed. But the difference, which we're super excited about, is the client never has to leave our ecosystem. The client legitimately can then log in to their HR portals as themselves without giving us information, without utilizing a third-party vendor. This is the technology that we've created. And then the AI that Anand has, which he'll talk about in a minute, actually goes into the portal and it extracts the data that we need. It pulls in the documents. It pulls in the W-2s. It pulls in the tax returns. It pulls in the bank statements. It pulls in the Social Security award letters. It pulls in all of the things that we need based on the client just doing what they're already comfortable with, which is checking their own HR portal anyway, or checking their own bank statement, or checking their own Social Security award letter. And instead of them having to then download it, upload it, and then there's an error, et cetera, it's integrated, it's a problem, it doesn't work, it doesn't upload, or they put it in the wrong spot, then behind the scenes, the technology starts to sort everything. And there's a lot of other stuff that it does. But what it did was it made it really easy, Rick, for us to now do this. If you were the client, for example, and I had you on the telephone, I would say, Rick, this is a really simple questionnaire. It's going to take you about 5 minutes. I've already entered your name and phone number. Why don't you just click this link right here? I just text it to you. While I have you on the telephone, just verify your phone number. You get a 6-digit authentication code. It comes through, auto logs you in. And I walk you through it and I go, okay, great. The section you're at right now, Rick, is your employment verification. So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can upload a ton of documentation to me, or you can just use what's probably saved in your phone anyway, log into your HR portal or your payroll portal, and our technology will actually extract the documentation that we need, and then we'll work on calculating the income. Which do you prefer? Now, Rick, you're a client. Which one do you prefer? You're like, you're going to do it for me? Cool. That sounds awesome. So now what we're doing instead is this. We're guiding the client through an experience. We're not taking data. We're guiding the client through an experience. Now, where I thought of this in the beginning and what Anand just basically took and set this thing is like, light years beyond was I had a failed attempt. This is my joke. I had a failed attempt at trading options at one point in time. Okay. And thankfully I still have a house. It was ugly though, right? But I was working with this. It was a great company, right? TD Ameribank or whatever, Ameritrade, whatever they are, right? So, but I would get on and I'd be like, I don't want to do this wrong. If I go naked on a sale, I'm like, am I going to lose my entire, everything? And so I would get on a call and I'd click a little button and it would say, we need some help. And they would literally have somebody on a telephone call with me that then is watching me guide through my app and is telling me I'm clicking the right stuff or explaining what I'm seeing. And I always thought, man, what a phenomenal customer service tool, because it taught me how to do what I needed to do. It made me feel like we were a team and we were accomplishing something. Now, Rick, the part that Anand's really fixed is this. When we tell a client to go upload documentation, we are essentially becoming their boss. And that's not the way this really works. They don't want to do it because we're telling them we need them to do something. When we're guiding them through an experience, they're very willing to just lean into it and it feels very comfortable. So Nan, you can give them all the background information, but what you solved for us is that it's now become an experience, not a task list.
That's precisely it, Andy. So let me add more color to it. Starting from the lead, and anytime like Andy or we're working with a great team at Novus and beyond Novus as well, a few customers, when you have your real estate partner send you an email like, hey, I got this customer, they're on their home ownership journey. The moment you have the lead, right from there, a quick questionnaire for them to say, okay, these are my, this is my situation, where I work, what I do, how I'm going to fund my down payment. And based on that questionnaire, then borrower then jumps into providing these docs. But then they're not the ones providing these docs. This is the first step where we have deployed AI agents, which are custom built. And at the ground level, these are just deep browser automation agents. So every borrower is given this confidential, secure environment where the agent is running and hosted, which borrowers use to, as Andy said, sign into their online accounts. Log into your IRS account, get your W-2, get your tax transcript, all that docs and data coming from borrower's account it costs lenders money and time, because at some point later on, you're going to have to submit 45 OC, someone have to sign that document, and then there's this few days of back and forth with IRS. Here, in 30 seconds, you got your tax transcripts, W-2s, complete that 2 years of income history for borrower using those docs, and that story repeats for every type of online account. And this is the unique aspect of what we have done. If you see what's happening in AI, let me take a bit of a digressing moment here. There is a lot of innovation happening in AI, but at the same time, the signal to noise ratio is out of whack. Many execs I talked to at ICE last month, the ICE Experience Conference last month, everyone's just exhausted, getting pitched by, oh, I have this new AI document processing tool you want. I can pitch you, I can use it. I've seen a lot of chatter on LinkedIn about this. And then honestly, that's really where the puck was 2 years ago. Doc processing was cool 2 years ago. If a vendor is pitching you to do a better doc or some version of doc processing, that's table stakes now. AI is moving at a speed which obviously mortgage industry can't keep up. We can't keep up as engineers. So how do we go and take the next frontier of technology and deploy it in our products today is what we're doing. Even some of the biggest companies are kind of figuring out how can we do this computer use and browser automation to automate tasks for borrowers. I think, Andy, we talked about this. Yvette was telling me the other day, they had a borrower who came in and used this platform to complete their application. And they're like, oh, I love it. I was working with someone else, but this was so seamless. Let's just continue. I already completed my application. I would love to just continue to work with you instead of this other company. They sent me this link. I have to now fill 30 screens of data entry, and I don't know what they're going to do after that. So that's the first step, deploying multi-agent browser automation infra for borrowers to complete their application with accurate documentation right from their online accounts. And if they choose to upload, that's absolutely fine. In that case, we're still going to go do that table stakes doc processing to tell them instantly if they're actually missing some key doc or they uploaded something which is not useful. So goal there is to really complete that application. So Andy and team and all the loan officers on the platform, they can get to that pre-approval step, not in days, under an hour. And the goal in India have set ourselves is for we got to get that pre-approval under 20 minutes is what we're going to achieve with that. And once we have this data, then we get into the next steps of, get all of that and start preparing income worksheets for this borrower, because the goal is to get to the DTI. This is all happening with the data coming from these docs. And as we get the data from an online account, it's all trusted. It's direct source data. So all of this then gets used for your income verification, your tax verification, your asset verification. So we've basically taken AI and deployed across the production process and automate tasks for borrowers, automate tasks for lending teams, for operations. And then all the data entry people are doing, oh, I got this data in POS, I got these docs, now manually go and fill all that data in Encompass. And we're eliminating all of that to automate that process or each step or these tasks across this production process.
Now, is this replicable? In other words, is it something that you just have to sort of customize it for every particular lender you're working with, or is it something that is it more plug and play?
No, it's ready. It's built in a way that there is nothing specific in this for one lender. This is a platform which we built, and going back to your point about these superficial boundaries about POS and lead gen and income cap, we built one platform. And
it seems like you've created a platform that kind of bleeds. I'm trying to see if it eliminates these solutions. You know what I mean? Or it just seems like it, or it just makes the existing tech stack more efficient. Or is it a combination of both?
So the one thing which I learned after talking to a lot of folks in the industry, Rick, is the biggest pain point anytime they're looking to adopt a new product or new innovation from tech industry is if it requires them to change from their core product, which is the LOS. Many lenders and their teams are using Encompass today. And the cost of training, the cost of change, the cost of moving away is so high that no one's really taking that bet. Now, there are some who are able to, but the the companies which aren't able to or don't want to take the burden of switching their LOS, which is Encompass or any other LOS, what we've built is a platform which works with Encompass. So you don't have to switch. You don't have to retrain your teams. You don't have to change your workflows or existing vendors for some of the, even after funding, if you have to go work with investors to sell the loan and whatnot. So that process remains the same. But we build a platform which does the rest of what we need to do. So it works in tandem with Encompass, and in future we'll integrate with other LOSs as well. But the rest of it, POS, you shouldn't have to fill 30 screens of data entry and then go through the manual process of loading docs. That's all automated. So it's a replacement for a POS, but I'm always hesitant to even call it a POS because in the traditional sense, it's not. Then income calculations are right in, your data extraction is right in, the borrower feedback is right in the platform. And then we have AI deployed across these steps. I'll give you another example. I always thought about, like, why is it that some of these steps are always done manually? So when we started to get clients use some of the military clients of Andy and team, we would see their pay stubs, LES, would say Army, Air Force, or whatever. But then when you look at their W-2, it comes from federal financial agency. So if someone is trying to see that these docs complete income for this borrower, the income history, you just can't relate these things together as one employment. So someone manually have to look at that. And this is a great use case for where we can deploy, or we have deployed AI to intelligently gather all these docs and then link back to autofill that employment data for this borrower and not have to manually review these things. And it's all done in a way that it's general purpose. It's working for Novus, it's working for a few other lenders we're working with. But as we onboard more lenders, it's going to work for everyone in the same way.
Rick, can I add something to that real quick? Because I think part of the part of the disconnect in the mortgage industry is we look at the process and we go, okay, great. Well, do we have to change everything? But we focus on, like, to your question, like, what's really broken? Most successful lenders today, and we could throw big broker shops in there, but the successful lenders, they don't actually have a problem with facilitation. Let's be honest. They, like, somebody showing up now to recruit me that says, oh, we can close on time and we have great operations. And I'm like, well, you should. Your whole entire job is to manufacture the widget that we take the order for. The issues that exist in the mortgage industry exist from initial contact through to submission to, let's just call it, processing underwriting. And so the reality is that what Anand's building and what he's got here is a phenomenal bolt-on tool to any, we'll call it, LOS that currently exists. Because the LOS where you go do the work and your underwriters and your closers and all of those people, function, doesn't necessarily have to yet, or at this point in any way, be affected or be touched by what Anand and the group is building. The reality is it's designed to fix the inconsistent part of our process, which is the part that I'm involved in. It's the part that happens from initial contact that's influenced by the borrower. Because the truth is that if we could take a borrower and we could clone them and we had 95% of the same circumstances every single time, we would have it would be a very boring process. The reality is it's easy to manufacture a widget when you actually take a great order. The real problem is that it's expensive to take great orders. It's expensive to do the frontline work. We need more people to do it. We need the people to be highly trained. To be highly trained costs money. And when margins are shrinking, what you end up with is branches or branch managers that, as a result, in order to produce higher and higher overall quality files, as technology advances, we have to choose to do more and more loans and make less and less money and less margin. Now, the reality is that as a company, that opens us up to recruitment, because somebody walks in and says, well, I'll just write you a big check, come work with me. And you're like, okay, great. Well, you're just a facilitation company. I'll just go produce my widget elsewhere. So the reality is what he's building from is it duplicatable? Should it be? And I mean, honestly, I believe as a frontline producer, right, what he's building is the mortgage of the future. And I think not embracing replacing some of the front end low level work with these AI agents is making a massive mistake, because what we're getting out of Anand's product right now, number one, we're getting better data faster and with less friction from the consumer. All three of those things equal less time, less energy, less money spent in order to produce a better result, which is frankly what everybody's been craving for from the mortgage industry and forever, is stop being inconsistent. Why are my people that are pre-approved not closing? Well, the answer is because we missed something in the beginning. And if we can program it in order to not miss anything, and then allow humans to do the high level work to say, okay, now we need to interpret this. This is a problem that needs interpretation. Now we're spending our time and our energy in our high level, high value, high dollar activities, and we're producing better results. So I think it's incredibly duplicatable across really every mortgage platform that exists.
Like, Andy, if you were to highlight like a couple different metrics of success that you would point to indicate really success for a non-solution, what would those metrics be? Is it cost per closed loan reduction? Is it consumer satisfaction surveys where they say that was fast and easy and Andy's team at Novus was great? Like what are the metrics, or is it all the above?
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of all of it. And to be fair, we've been in a sort of rapid implementation environment for, I don't know, probably 8 months or so, roughly. So here's what I've seen. So number one, we have seen the client experience as we talk to them about the process. We have seen the client experience be significantly more positive. And as a result, we've had to tweak some of our scripting and our processes, right? Because like send a link. Here's what we found, Rick. We would send a link to the client. We would say, hey, you can use this to just to connect to your employment, and we'll get your employment documentation through this. And they still wouldn't do it. We're like, well, okay, well, why don't they do it? Well, you know why they didn't do it? Is because they don't want to do it. Is because it's a task. And when my wife says to me, take out the trash, I'm like, well, I was going to take out the trash, but then you asked me to do it. Now I'm not going to do it, right? Because I'm stubborn and I don't want to do that. So human nature is human nature. So once we tweaked the scripting and we said, hey, we just want to walk you through what you're seeing here. This is where, then all of a sudden we started to see documentation get uploaded. And the clients they're like, wow, that was really cool. That was actually super efficient. I talked to 3 other mortgage companies before I talked to you, or I was going to interview a couple other mortgage companies. But honestly, you made that look really easy. So I think I'm probably pretty good, right? And so we've seen that sort of thing happen. The other thing, though, that I've seen, which is really important to me as a producer, so I've seen the client experience aspect change a little bit, which has been nice. But internally, I've seen that we've been able to handle more leads with better documentation and data sooner, and it's improved our quality of our pre-approval. And I know that because we're still cleaning up some, look, we all have messes, but we're still cleaning up some messes from 5 and 6 months ago, where some of the processes that we've built around Anand's tech here weren't necessarily in place. And we were still getting documentation in an old way. We were missing things, but his tech is getting so good that it's really starting to help us identify areas of problems on pre-approvals before they even exist. And it's streamlining that part. So some of the feedback I'm getting is from clients. And then Rick, the other important feedback that I'm getting is actually from our frontline pre-approval specialists and the team that's working on the files. And they're like, we're getting a lot more data faster and easier. And it's making our process of pre-approval, it's shortening the time frame and it's giving us better accuracy.
I love that. And for you, it's I mean, because you operate really at scale, Andy. I mean, you have your 100 million or so that's connected to you, but like, do you have a production? Like, what's your overall production focus for your team?
That's it. My team supports the production that I bring in. So that's my production. So that's 100 million a year in production. And, look, we believe in, I believe in the 10X model, right? I've got a vision of my production team doing 500 million in volume. Okay. And I don't know if it's going to take us 2 years or it's going to take us 10 years to get there. And I don't really care, but we're going to do 500 million at some point in time. And we're going to do it because we're leaning into technology that Anand is building, specifically that he's building. And the key is it's because the technology doesn't replace the human. The technology amplifies the work and the experience of the human doing the job. And the end result is that because we're removing so many of those monotonous tasks that get overlooked or get missed. And they're what caused the problems. We all know when you have to stop the assembly, when you have to shut down an auto assembly line, it's unbelievably devastating to margins, profit, et cetera. The mortgage industry stops the assembly line every day of every month of every year because we don't do a great job with what Anand's technology is filling the gaps for. And so this is where the merger of the Rick and the Andy's experience level and these really high level producers, like there are people that are going out there that are already there, right? Okay. You got Sean, for example, he does $1 billion. Like, okay, great. You're going to see more $1 billion producers that present themselves purely because they lean into the technology that Anand's created, and they're going to have much better lives. But the key part is their clients are going to have better experiences, significantly better experiences.
That's the key.
I mean, look, I think what you're painting the picture of is really the net result of what AI is enabling, right? Because you get a guy like yourself, Andy, that you get a solution like Anand's that creates sort of that removes the traditional barriers that limited scale. Yeah. That like to your point, at 100 million a year, because of a solution like Anand's, it enables you to remove a lot of the mundane tasks and focus on more of the maybe outbound business building tasks that will enable your ability to get to 500 million so that you're not punished with production. Because it gets to a point where with all the mundane activities, the more production you do, it creates more problems, right? And you got to throw people at those problems. By removing all those mundane tasks, you're able to sort of, it's sort of, you get sort of the backdraft of production behind you rather than being punished by it.
Right. And imagine this, and Anand, we've talked about this before, but imagine, and because this is how we're getting to this point soon, where I can take a client, for example, that really just wants to get on a call with me. Okay. They're like, I don't want to give you any information yet. I don't even know you. Okay, great. Let's get on a call. And we talk through it. And I'm on a 30 or a 45-minute call with this particular client. And while we're on the call, yes, they're going to give me information because now they're willing to. They're like, oh, this is great. Like, okay, this guy doesn't bite. He's not really going to, okay, I feel comfortable, right? And so my natural skill set is human interaction, right? So great, I make you feel good, and we feel great about this. And you want to give me data because you want to talk about things that I want to talk about. But now you're willing to lean into it. So we're actually on the call and I say, hey, just check out my little link right here, quick questionnaire. Let's link this stuff up. And behind the scenes, Rick, imagine this. Anand's technology is extracting all the data that we need. It's going in while the client just quickly logs into their necessary accounts. And then while I'm having a conversation around goals and vision and mission and where they want to be and all of the relationship stuff that we're doing naturally, behind the scenes, the income calculations are all running. And I'm getting a checklist on the side of my screen that says, these are the 5 things that you need to follow up on because we noticed the driver's license doesn't match the bank statement. Would you like to create would you like to create an LOX for that particular client that they can complete while you're on the call? Yes, I would. And then the next question is, oh, hey, I don't know if you care about this or not, but there were 2 overdrafts that occurred on the May bank statement. You just need to be sure that you're aware of this. We also noticed that they have 3 withdrawals that come out consistently. And those 3 withdrawals are all linked, for example, to Bread Financial, which is one of those buy now, pay later, shadow debt type of things. So just an FYI, you got a shadow debt concern. We also noticed that they work overtime. And so here's the income calculations with overtime. Here it is without overtime. And here's the overlay that say, if you're using Fannie Mae and you're using Freddie Mac, this is how it applies. Toggle this little switch and it'll tell you what the DTI is on the loan file. Now, right now I'm taking us forward 6 or 9 months into the future. But if I'm on real time diagnosing what we see and I'm in a screen share and the client's seeing all this real data, and that client, all they had to do was link their accounts, and then they hang up with me and they go rate shop me and they call somebody down the street that's running a documentation where it's the old school POS and they've got to upload this documentation before they even think about solving a problem. Are they really getting very far? No. The truth is that what we're going to see, because we're able to do this and because that vision is there in order to achieve this, this is why you're going to see $1 billion producers that are created. And, and the reality is that it's just simply a better experience for the client. So when you can envision that, and then you can articulate something like that to somebody like Anand and his team of phenomenal engineers, and they say, oh, I see how that would work. All of a sudden we're 500 steps ahead of the competition, and the race just started. You know what I mean? Which is, this is where this industry is headed. This is the technology that will be used. And at the end of the day, the client is on that call and they're getting what they want. They're getting the human interaction. They're getting, because here's the other thing. Here's what's really missing. And this is why AI itself, and so first of all, you know, I jokingly say I'm kind of an idiot. I am, but the reality is I study these other industries. Here's the deal. This is why AI struggles to be everywhere in medical and legal and probably mortgage in general. And it's the reason that they still need Rick and they still need Andy and they still need all these fantastic producers out there. And it's because there's no methodology of accountability around AI. And humans will always, at the end of the day, crave this. Rick, I'm going to blame you for something that went wrong. And Andy, I'm going to blame you. And I need you to fix what went wrong. And when we can be the point person and we can own the accountability because we can trust the process and we can trust the systems and the technologies as strong as it is, we're not replaceable. The courts haven't figured out how you sue AI yet. The reality is that there has to be accountability, which means that high level person. And with more accountability and with more responsibility also comes more opportunity and more money and all of the other things that we all are out working on doing, but we have to be willing to accept it. So Anand, that's the product that you're really creating at a high level, creates that opportunity for people like me and Rick.
You hit it exactly what it matters. I think the key thing here is, as AI is evolving at the pace that it's evolving at, what are the most seamless ways for lenders? Are they running on a platform where they can actually use the AI in ways where it can benefit them? So we talked about doc processing and all that. That was about 2 years ago. People are still selling that. That's not where the innovation is. Yes, you need that. If you're relying on someone who's still like, oh, you give us PDF and we'll give you, take us 4 hours to get back with the income calculation sheets, that's going to slow you down, as Andy was explaining. The other thing which we noticed today is, because the one way the tech industry has figured out for how AI can be used is in a chat experience, right? That's where it all started, ChatGPT, a bunch of other tools. Yeah. And so some products are like trying to retrofit that. Is like, oh, the best innovation we can do in mortgage industry with AI is build a chatbot within the application. And I know we've talked about it. Is it helpful? Maybe, but that's really not the innovation. That's, in fact, you're trying to take that human connection out. So when someone needs to talk, they need to talk to Andy, not to a chatbot. AI should be helping them get the mundane things done, not the human out from that conversation or from that relationship. If someone really needs to talk to a chatbot to ask something about mortgage, they can just always go to ChatGPT, ask that question. Heck, they can just go into Google and it'll give you the AI overview without you even figuring out, okay, which chatbot to talk to. I think the industry and the people who are going to be the next billion-dollar producers, they're going to use AI in ways which aren't these stereotypes. And they're the ones who are going to continue to increase their volume and acquire new customers and cut these loans, because AI is going to go and eliminate a lot of the manual work which is happening today. And we're really, I think, in the middle of it. We have done quite a bit of it, which is already live. And to Andy's point, like in next, I would say 6 to 8 months, a lot of this vision, which Andy's explaining, is also going to be in place. But just seeing today, like I'll pick an example. Last month, we had a borrower come in, and they're in medical industry, which is very interesting use case for borrowers because they have these like short duration jobs in different practices. So to complete that 2 years of income history, they probably have 4 or 5 jobs. So this borrower had 4 jobs, different, obviously every job is going to require different documentation. And they completed that for employment income with accurate details, with full documentation, under 8 minutes. So when I saw that, I was blown away. It's like, okay, this is what's going to go happen with the efficiency we can build with AI. Either they're using automation to pull the documents from their accounts of different types, or even they upload. They're instantly giving the feedback for what docs are still missing. So go log in at IRS and we can automate this for you, or complete these docs for your loan officer to actually give you a decision for what's going to happen next. Because without that, they're just waiting for you, and it's not going to work.
Well,
so that's the key difference there.
What I love about this conversation is it reminds me of, I mean, obviously AI will reduce headcount or will reduce the need for certain, physical and manual processes. It will repurpose people's jobs and redirect and zero in on their efforts away from the mundane tasks, like Andy was saying. But Dave Savage had made the comment that AI is really enabling consumer loan officers. And Andy, you said this perfectly, to really focus on tasks that are more authentically human, because the mundane paper pushing kind of tasks and the redundant tasks and the repeated tasks of having to compare this, look at that, next file, compare this, look at that, next file, compare this, look at that, collect that. All these things remove away from the very things that we're aimed to do. And that's to understand, to reflect, to guide, to provide advice, to provide good sort of soulful counsel to a consumer that you do care about, that you're trying to assist and help, try to better penetrate and understand the consumer's needs, and all those mundane tasks create distance between the loan officer and the consumer.
Yeah.
And so you're removing that distance, and then now all of a sudden it's like the fire can really happen, because now all of a sudden you're really connected. You're so intimately connected with the consumer in ways that we've never been able to do so, because we have the data. It's faster, it's more accurate. It's really fascinating to see where that theory is really becoming practice, with both your relationship with Attentive and with Anon, and then you're putting it, it's not theory to you, Andy. You're closing 100 million plus a year. You just want to serve. You want to be able to serve more customers at scale, so that, because where's your footprint? I didn't look at that on where would you say? I mean, I could tell you as well. So you're closing business. You're closing business really all over the country, right?
Yeah. Bulk of our footprint, though, is going to be Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia.
Fair, but all of a sudden, because of the use of technology, your ability to be able to serve these markets across the country are going to be real. Like the geographic spread, because that's where these mundane tasks become the sort of the separator. Because once you remove those, all of a sudden you can be just as visible to your clients all over Virginia, all over North Carolina, all over all the contiguous states, wherever, whatever realtor or builder you do a relationship with, you can extend that through just a better use of tech.
Well, I think everything that you're saying is accurate. I think the statement that sums it up is, and I've always felt this, is how do we take our positions, which naturally come across as adversarial to the client? Like, we don't want them to be, but the client views us as adversarial at the onset of our relationship. I mean, they just genuinely do. It's to the consumer. They want the information that we have, but they're programmed to not want to relinquish it, right? It's second only to probably walking into a car dealership and being like, I think I want to buy a new car, but I'm not sure yet. The reality is they're like, nope, I'm fine. I don't need it. Nope, I'm good, right? I do the same thing. I'm like, this is what it feels like. So how do we quickly transition from adversary to advocate? And when you ask yourself, if I make this decision, or I change this process, or I do this thing, will that present a better opportunity for me to be seen by the consumer as an advocate or as an adversary? And if the answer is not advocate, then we're doing it wrong as an industry. And most of the decisions that we've made as an industry for the 25 years of my career have led up to, from a company standpoint, an industry standpoint, et cetera, have all been adversarial in nature. And now we're just starting, well, and I don't want to say just starting to figure it out, but we're starting to see some traction around this, which is good. But certainly I've been preaching it for a long time. And I think that that's the part that Anon picked up on right away is if we create an advocate experience, because in the mortgage industry, Rick, the word that I absolutely adore is we are, and we should have the role of protagonist in their hero story.
Yeah.
Okay. and that I'm aware of, there's no protagonist that makes the process harder for somebody or less enjoyable. A protagonist by nature is designed to make things easier and accommodating. Yes, they're there to sort of move things along and make it happen and et cetera. But we've not ever taken on that role. And that's my word of the second half of my career is protagonist. And that's what Authentive is helping us build.
Well, I love it. I think this is
framing, Andy. That's amazing.
Well, the framing's amazing from adversary to advocate. I mean, in the end, when you have distance, to be the perfect advocate, you got to remove all the very barriers and all the distractions and all the things that cloud your ability to provide the best judgment you possibly can to assist the borrower. And, without having a very clear view of that, it's hard to do that. Right. So you inherently struggle as being sort of an unwanted, adversary because you want to be an advocate. We're struggling to be that advocate. But when you have inherent limitations like that, you're sort of, you're failing. Not you personally, but it's easy.
The process fails. The process fails. It's exactly what it does. It's set up to make it harder. The process is set up to make people like you and my's job harder because we then have to fight. We're like, well, I need you to do these things so that I can give you what it is that you're asking for. Because I can't give you what you're asking for accurately unless you help me by giving me what it is we need. And it's like, yeah, but that requires me doing stuff and I'm not comfortable with you. It's naturally, if this, then that. No, you first, right? You first. No, you first. No, you first. Like, just stop it all, right? Let's quit being children. Let's just help people do naturally what they want to do in a process that then makes it easier for us to do what we do as well.
Right. That was the key learning for us, like always looking to learn more and understand where the gaps are and how to fill those. But when I talk to a lot of top producing LOs or execs, I was always trying to figure out in the same company, given the same tool, same stack, what really differentiates top producers from the folks who are struggling? What is it that makes people different, right? And for me, it was always the producers who are really moving or elevating themselves beyond just this traditional loan officer role and playing more of a financial advisor role to clients are the ones who are most successful, because that's when the clients start to trust them. And that's the goal here, building tools, using AI in ways where more loan officers can actually play that role, helping people achieve that homeownership dream by becoming their financial advisors in ways where, as Andy said, the protagonist not there like fighting them throughout that process. And I think AI is going to do that, and many folks are going to adopt that, and they're the ones who are going to get ahead. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Well, I love this because I think you guys coined this. I coined it perfectly. In that this really is the mortgage of the future. And really the mortgage of the future is removing the distance between the loan officer to the consumer. The loan officer assumes that role as advocate and to be able to make really the clearest, most, you can't play cards with one hand behind your back, right? And when you don't have all the asset information, the income information, when you don't have the full three-dimensional picture of the consumer, it's really difficult to be the kind of advocate that Andy has been up to this point very successful in doing. But to accomplish your 10x goal, to get to 500 million, it's really difficult to do, without throwing a lot of bodies at the process. But even then, there's a lot of mistakes that are made. So we're trending toward an age of efficiency, quality, with errors and omissions being sort of addressed. And in the end, I think that a lot of this is going to lead to better pricing because investors will have better sort of confidence in the loan files that are being shipped and delivered to them at the end, right? And ultimately, investors just want to pay more and to compete more and to compete better for better quality files. So ultimately, that'll translate.
Wouldn't that be an amazing outcome of all of this?
better pricing to the consumer, better compensation for Andy and his team, and it's just a better experience across the board. So I think this is fantastic, and I've loved this conversation. I'd love to circle back in 5 months, Andy.
Let's do it.
I'm a huge fan of Eric's, a huge fan of Novus and what you guys are doing. Eric speaks very highly of you and your leadership within the organization. Now I can see why, to be honest.
Thank you.
So I'd love to see, real results as a result of Anand and his work with your team.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. There's a few key metrics that we'll start closely tracking now that we've really got some product innovation that's done and we're using it and all of our clients are participating in it. So I think we can give you some good stats on the next one as well.
No, I love it. Well, I appreciate you guys and this opportunity to connect. And Anand, keep up the great work. It's sort of quote unquote outsiders like you that are really making us think at the world much differently. And with a bit of empathy on your part for learning a little bit about the challenges we're confronted with, combined with your experience, your deep experience outside the industry, I think it's gonna yield a much better experience for all of us, for consumers as well as loan officers alike.
Appreciate you getting us on here. I think it's teamwork. We're learning on this side for how mortgage works and how it can be made better. There's a lot of learning in the last 2 years. Hoping to bring a lot of the things we have learned in past lives and apply those here. And I think so far we're seeing great results. I'm just going to continue to push and bring this value.
Fantastic, guys. I appreciate you guys being on Real Fridays, and Real Fridays every Friday at 12:30. So we've been doing this for about 3 years, so we're going to keep doing it. But this has been great. Andy, good luck to you, man.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
That's a great taste.